For more than 3 weeks now, the people of Iran have been protesting against the Iranian regime, driven primarily by the economic conditions brought about by the sanctions they've been working. And while the Islamic Republic's nearly 2-week internet blackout has made it difficult to gauge the full scope of the situation, the message that the Iranian people have been trying to get out is quite clear. They want change. Well, at the end of last week, I spoke with U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Mike Waltz, for my weekend program this week on Capitol Hill. We talked about the protest in Iran. So I'd like to share with you that discussion that we had over the weekend. Here is how we got the conversation started. All right, so the unrest in Iran, is it subsiding or does it remain volatile?
Well, we're seeing the protests continue, but at the same time, with the brutality that the regime has meted out on its own people, massive arrests by the UN's own figure, up to 18,000 killed. Other international figures have it anywhere from 12 to 20, regardless. This has been a massacre. The regime has used military-grade weapons and mowed down its own people. In addition to that, we're seeing tens of thousands of arrests. It appears the executions that were imminent have stayed for a bit, and I think that's in direct response to the regime being afraid of the potential actions President Trump could take. But we're watching closely, Tony, and it is wholly unacceptable, and I made that point to the United Nations Security Council. Not only made that point, but called them out for their silence over the prior week, as the regime has gone to an absolute blackout, crackdown, and once again brutalized its own people.
Ambassador, you are well-versed on these issues. When you were in the House, frequent guest on my program discussing foreign policy issues. So Iran is not new to you. So let me ask you this question. Is this unique? Are we at a tipping point? Could we see something fundamentally change there?
Well, here's what's different from the prior protests. I mean, we remember, an uprising under the Obama administration, the Green Movement, where, frankly, the administration and President Obama did next to nothing in response. President Trump's not a man of talk. He's a man of action, number one. Number two, the second executive order he put in place was to reinstitute his maximum pressure campaign that had been lifted under the Biden administration. So what's critically different here is the Iranian economy is not going to improve anytime soon. Their currency is tanking. They are able to export less and less of their illegal oil. President Trump put the buyers of that oil and anything else coming from Iran on notice with another promise of additional tariffs. We took out, at least for the foreseeable future, the Iranian nuclear threat. So the regime is ultimately afraid. It's afraid of its own people. It's afraid of losing power. And it certainly is afraid of the potential action from President Trump.
What's the current situation, the economic unrest, is evident that the sanctions were working. Because the people are saying, hey, enough is enough. Reports are that
Tony,
the Gulf...
Sorry to interrupt you, just an important point. One of the metrics that I watch very closely and have throughout my career, and including President Trump's first term, is that Iran's terrorist proxies are complaining. The Houthis, Hezbollah, their militias in Iraq, Hamas, and others aren't getting the plane loads of cash, and now Venezuela as well, aren't getting the plane loads of cash that they used to. And that means that the terrorist trust fund that sits in Tehran is drying up. And for everybody out there saying, why do we care? Look, the root of all evil comes out of this Iranian regime across the Middle East that has caused conflict after conflict. President Trump is focused on fundamental change. And first and foremost, it's drying up the regime's money that it's used to fuel these wars all over the Middle East and the world.
And that's happening. And the people of Iran who do not agree, a large portion of them, with their government, are taking to the streets. We're at that looks like catalytic moment, a turning point, tipping point, if you will. But at the end of the week, reports were that the Gulf states were stepping in, trying to urge the more of diplomatic negotiations to get the U.S. to back off. Is that true?
Well, look, one of the threats that Iran has always put out there on the table, aside from promising to wipe out the nation of Israel and attack the great Satan, which they call the United States, the other threat is to launch short-range missiles all over their neighbors and attack their neighbors in the Middle East. You'll remember just a few years ago, they attacked one of the world's largest oil refineries, Saudi Aramco, directly. So, look, the region will always want to be sure that they can defend themselves and that we can help defend them if the regime lashes back. And I can promise you, Secretary Hegseth, Rubio, and of course the president will make sure that we hear their concerns and address them.
All right, that was my conversation from this week on Capitol Hill with Ambassador to the United Nations, Mike Waltz. You can actually look at the entire interview this week on CapitolHill.com. Better yet, get the Stand Firm app, and you can watch it on the app. Text app to 67742.